Hey guys, Mouse here. So let's talk about some of the most important things you need to know about Shuhua, how her damage really works, how her skills scale, what artifact setups are best, and whether she's worth pulling for right now for her current value as well as future potential value. Now, the devs already announced that these I-dle units won't be added to the custom pool, so I do hope that this video will help you decide better. However, also do take note that does not mean reruns are off the table, so it's still very possible. So anyway, I've already done a bunch of testing on top of the gameplay I've posted, and honestly, I think she can be either good or bad depending on a lot of factors, which I'll cover here. So let's go ahead and break it down. So let's start with where her damage comes from. Her skill 1 has a low multiplier, but it gives her the performance buff, which is plus 50% core attack damage by default. Her skill 2 triggers high energy beat, which is a spammable core attack you can use up to 6 times at A5. Even though the tooltip here says it increases the skill damage, don't get confused. This is still core attack, not skill damage. So infamy or any basic skill damage increase will not work here. Now, those plus 50% from performance and plus 100% from high energy beat at A3 are all additive to core damage bonuses. That means if you're running Maelin Fisher, her core attack buffs stack additively with these, leading to diminishing returns. It's still decent, but not the ideal synergy we want. For her A2, it changes the Starlight Bark to Starlight Howl, a flat plus 100% damage buff, not a skill damage percent multiplier. That means Infamy does apply here, and her basic skills can deal solid damage, especially since her high energy beat core attack reduces their cooldown and makes them spammable. Now with her weapon, her ultimate damage stacks up to plus 300% ultimate skill damage, which sounds huge, but the ultimate's base multiplier is not very high in my opinion. Take note that this buff is also additive with Infamy's ultimate skill damage, so again, diminishing returns there. As you can see here in the test, the Infamy set's 100% bonus only raised her ult from 920k to 1.15 million. Then there is also this tension drop, which boosts water damage taken by up to 10%. But after testing, this turned out to be water elemental damage increase, not elemental damage taken. So these are two totally different categories. So here in this test, it's only about 6.7% extra damage against a 150% water weak enemy. So this is underwhelming, especially when you already have water damage buffs from other sources. So the bottom line here is that her kit is a mix of skill damage, core attack, and ultimate damage. So with that being said, what is gonna be the best artifact setup for her? So I ran a bunch of POD tests with matching stats. I'm not going to go over the testing details anymore, but just do know that this is a standard setup. We break both hands instantly, so all the damage lands on the head. All stats are going to be close to equal. So with Infamy set, 1.7 billion, 1.7 B, 2.2, 1.8, mostly hovered around 1.7 billion, and there's a one spike probably due to RNG, I'm not sure. But with a Curse Plus Expert, I did 4 runs too, with 2.1, 1.9, 2.3, and then 1.6, overall higher damage than the Infamy set. But take note that there is RNG factor here, so we can't be too sure. But looking at the amount of runs, I think it's more likely that the Curse Plus Expert is actually going to be the better option for her artifact set. For the next test, I removed Maelin and did a more realistic POD setup because we are using Anaruiz, right? So I just used Lightjaw here to stabilize crit rate and avoid the RNG from Anaruiz's poison. The 8-piece Infamy resulted to 1 to 1.1 billion damage, but Curse Plus Expert is at 1.57 billion. So yeah, without Maelin's attack buffs, Infamy drops off hard, and even with her, Curse Plus Expert still wins. So the bottom line here is that with Maelin, Infamy works, but it's not going to be impressive on her current kit unless her basic skills multiplier are improved in the future, which is also very possible. So to sum up, I believe the best setups is going to be Curse Plus Expert, the default for team fights, Arm Plus Expert, the best one for Factna, the guild boss if you have high penetration, Curse Plus Obsidian for Hunters mode, specifically the short fights with tighter rotations, Warmonger plus Obsidian, if you have it, can be used too, and Toughness set, which I have not tested anymore, but it also has potential in higher level content, and also she lacks crit damage percent, so it does not get diminished that much. Now let's compare her to Water Cha in POD. This was not a water weakness week, so Shuhua's elemental bonus did not apply, so she's a bit of a disadvantage here. Now Shuhua still with Sorin and Meilin, 2.8 billion, Water Cha is at 4 billion. This is even with full auto and not doing the Swords Resolve tactic. So Cha still outdamages her by a lot. With the 30% elemental buffs that Shuhua has, she might be able to catch up a bit, but still not gonna be able to reach that Water Cha damage. Then I also tested with Meilin, and while Cha's damage dropped a lot, she still won. Now the only thing that I want to emphasize here is that Meilin helps Shuhua more because of core damage buffs and the attack percentage, whereas for Cha, most of her damage comes from the basic skills, and she already has too much defense percent. By the way, just to let you guys know that I removed Meilin's weapon here to keep it fair, because it will surely go to Shuhua. Anyway, nothing here is enough to close the gap. And finally, I also tested Shuhua in Proof of the Strong levels and in Workshop, so I still kept the stats similar to Cha, but I could not clear it, and I don't see her clearing it either, whereas Cha clears it very easily. And the reason for that is because Shuhua, first of all, does not have unrecoverable effect, which counters Yogamunt's mechanics, and being a squishy attack type on-field DPS, even if she has shields, she still takes a lot of hits and dies often. And to add to that, she does not have super armor either, so we gotta do a lot of dodges, which messes up her rotation and her DPS. It was really difficult in this case. And in the guild boss, it really depends on the setup. I already did post some videos on this, so just stay tuned for specific strategies that I'm gonna upload. But in summary, Water Cha still dominates here, especially with her bugged A4 that counts water units outside her team more than 3 times. So that is where the difference is. On the other hand, Shuhua is also pretty decent if you run armed plus expert and stack a lot of penetration, but even with that, she's still not better than Cha. Now here's where it gets weird and also very interesting. Firstly, her A3 here speeds up power gauge gain, and her weapon boosts ultimate damage. So that means she can cast the ultimate fast, right? But her ultimate has no cooldown reduction. So in essence, we're just charging it extremely fast and just waiting a long time after the first use. And with Meilin on the team, she's pretty much got that power gauge covered already. So what is this really for? Right now, this power gain mechanic feels wasted. It's like her kit was designed for a different kind of support, maybe one that reduces ultimate cooldown, like Isla for example. And also, Meilin's core attack buff only lasts 8 seconds with a 12 seconds cooldown, but Shuhua's rotation takes longer, so she's clearly meant to stay on field, while Meilin is better for quick switch burst units like Alicia or Water Cha. So the synergy here, I feel like it's very clunky. So overall, it really feels like she's missing a support that has not been released yet. And if the devs designed her to fit into a future comp, that would explain probably the awkward scaling and rotations now, or maybe they just mess it up, so we're not sure. We can argue that collab units that are not meant to have full teams, so that is also fair. But I think Mion is in the same boat. Her synergy with the carry, for example, is also weird. So I think that these units are intentionally incomplete and may get proper supports later. So that might explain the reason why they are not surpassing the older units in terms of damage and they're not power creeping them yet. But again, it's also possible that there are just alternative options, but I don't really think so, because if there's gonna be a rerun for these I-dle units, it will probably be alongside those new units that might synergize better with them. It's also possible that they would buffer in the future. So overall, is she strong? Right now, she's decent. Works in the guild boss as a sub DPS. Is she better than Cha? Not right now. Is she needed? Not really. The future, again, that is a risk that you will have to take if you're gonna invest on her now. There might also be game content prepared for them. Maybe the hard mode POD is also a possibility. So should you pull? That's up to you. I laid out all the info. It's your call to make, but personally, I think she's very fun to play, like that gameplay, but I think she's not a must pull. And lastly, I really feel like a lot of her current weaknesses is a result of incomplete, suboptimal lineups available right now. So that's it for this video. If this video helped, don't forget to drop a like, share this with your guildmates, and hit subscribe if you want more content like this. See you in the next one.